back of the temple, and at different stages of the morning, shines directly on their lordships during the darshan arti time. So in a few, over the next few weeks, go for today it was on Sri Gaur Nitai, and gradually it'll go over and to Sri Radha Sharad Bihari. Those that remember back at the beginning or in the first week of December in 2018, that was when this temple room was inaugurated and the deities were moved here. And that next morning, the sunlight was directly on Sri Radhashard Bihari during the morning darshan arti. And that was a kind of a confirmation that everything was auspicious. Nice time of the year. So over the next month or so, that sun comes down in the morning. Let us start by reciting Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari
Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari
Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari
Gopi Janavallabha
Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari
Gopi Janavallabha
Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari
Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari
Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana
Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashotatara Shishimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashotatara Shishimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Maharaj Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki. Ganga Maya Ki. Jamuna Maya Ki. Bhakti Devi Ki. Tulsi Devi Ki. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Thy Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale. Shrimate Bhakti Tirtha Swamini Tinamane Namaste Krishna Padaya. Prabhupada Ashokatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Swamini Tinamane. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamane. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirajit Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtuki. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, one should offer one's respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, to Narayan Rishis, the supermost human beings, unto the Goddess of Learning, Mother Saraswati, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that becomes troublesome to the heart becomes almost completely destroyed, and devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes established within one's heart as an irrevocable fact. Today we are continuing our study of the third canto, chapter 15, entitled Description of the Kingdom of God, and we are on text number 19. Do you have that meeting? Okay. Switch it to mine if you want. Let me send the Zoom. We'll just swap it. So this is the meter for this verse is that of we would chant the Brahma Samhita. We're just going to take a second to switch off. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Okay. They're okay? I can't hear them I can see this. I don't think I need this. I don't think we need it because I can't hear them if they ask something. Somebody has to unplug it. Can you hear okay now?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can hear
yes,
you.
Prabhu.
1 second. We just want to make sure this is working. We're good?
So what is this ISKCON Philadelphia is coming on the screen?
Okay. So this is the meter of this verse is that of the Brahma Samhita. I'll say. Kunda Karabot Balakampai Karna. Punaga Naga Bakulam Bujapari Jataha. Kandevi Tulasi
Just
Say something.
Can you hear me now?
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
You have to turn the camera around also. Thank you.
Something is coming on this Philadelphia and
Mandara Kam. Punaga Naga Balukambuja Parijataha. Kande Richete Tulasi Kamane Mahasya.
This thing is coming.
Somebody else? Check. Have to take it out and redo it. Start up again. Anybody else like to check? Mandara kunda karabot pala champakarna.
Naga parijata.
Unaga naga badukambuja parijata. Kande vichete tulasaka vivarnena tasya.
Yasmin stapa sumanaso manayanti.
Yasmin stapasa manaso bahumanayanti. Anybody online like to chant? I know we had a little interruption there, but anybody would like to chant?
Mandara kunda karabotpala champakarna.
Mandara kunda karabot pala champakarna.
Unnaga naga vakulambuja parijata.
Unaga naga balukambuja parijata.
Gandhechite tulasika bharanena tasya.
Kande richete tulasi kambaranina tasya.
Yasmin tapassu manaso bahumanayanti.
Yasmin stapasa manaso bhuvanayanti.
Hare Krishna. Mandar kund kurabot pala champakarana.
Mandara kunda karabot pala champakarna.
Punnag nag bakula puj parijata.
Punaga naga balukambuja parijataha.
Gandhe richite tulsi ka bharanena tasya.
Gande richete tulasi kaparuna lasya.
Yasmim sutapaha sumanso bahuman yanti.
Yasmin stapa manaso bahumanayanti.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, synonyms. Mandara, mandara flower. Kunda, kunda flower. Kuraba, kuraba. Utpala, utpala. Champaka, champaka. Arna, arna. Punaga, punaga. Naga, naga shara. Bakula, bakula. Ambuja, lily. Parijataha, parijata. Gandhe, fragrance. Archite, being worshipped. Tulosika, tulasi. Abhar anena, with a garland. Tasyaha, of her. Yasmin, in which Vaikuntha. Tapaha, austerity. Sumanasaha, good-minded. Vaikuntha-minded. Bahu, very much. Manyati, glorify. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Although flowering plants like the Mandara, Kunda, Kurubaka, Utpala, Champaka, Arna, Punaga, Nagakshara, Bakula, Lily, and Parijata are full of transcendental fragrance, they are still conscious of the austerities performed by Tulsi. For Tulsi is given special preference by the Lord, who garlands himself with Tulsi leaves. Purport. The importance of Tulsi leaves are very clearly mentioned here. Tulsi plants and their leaves are very important in devotional service. Devotees are recommended to water the Tulsi tree every day and collect the leaves to worship the Lord. One time, an atheistic Swami remarked, "What is the use of watering the Tulsi plant? It is better to water eggplant. By watering the eggplant, one can get some fruits. But what is the use of watering the Tulsi?" These foolish creatures, unacquainted with devotional service, sometimes play havoc on the education of the people in general. The most important thing about the spiritual world is that there is no envy among the devotees there. This is true even among the flowers, which are all conscious of the greatness of Tulsi. In the Vaikuntha world, entered by the four Kumaras, even the birds and the flowers are conscious of the service of the Lord. Om Ajnatam Virandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Translation once again. Although flowering plants like the Mandara, Kunda, Karabaka, Utpala, Champaka, Arna, Punaga, Nagakshara, Bakula, Lily, and Parijata are all full of transcendental fragrance, they are still conscious of the austerities performed by Tulsi. For Tulsi is given special preference by the Lord, who garlands himself with Tulsi leaves. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai. So in this verse, the glories of Tulsi Devi are being mentioned. And Srila Prabhupada elaborates on this, that in the spiritual world, there is no envy. Actually, even the plants are conscious, the birds, the beasts, everything has life, everything has consciousness. Even the inanimate objects that we would experience in this world, like rocks and lakes, streams, trees, these all have consciousness, and they exhibit consciousness and have an awareness of what is going on, and that the service of the Lord is actually taking place. Once Srila Prabhupada had remarked when he came to America, he said, and he writes this in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, when I came to the West, he confessed that he was very unhappy because he could not find in this country Tulsi Maharani anywhere. Until Govinda Dasi began cultivating Tulsi out in Hawaii. So this worship of Tulsi is very dear to the devotees. And it is very difficult to cultivate her in the, say when you have the 4 seasons, when it gets cold out. She doesn't do very good in the cold. It's something you have to really make arrangements for her care. You have to have a greenhouse or a room that's set up with special lights, special heat, and the humidity. Temples go to great length to be able to cultivate the Tulsi plant. And one may say, well, why make such endeavor to do this? It's not very natural to grow Tulsi in this environment. You know, so much time, so much energy, so much money gets invested in worshiping Tulsi. Is it really necessary? And we can find from this verse that the importance of Tulsi, among all the top fragrant flowers, she's being glorified by them as being the most special. So we should remember that the importance of Tulsi, not just our belief, but it's the belief of all her peers of other fragrances. In the verse in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna tells us that patram pushpam phalam tvayam yome bhaktya prayachati taraham bhaktya uparitam ashnami praya atmanaha. And if one offers me with love and devotion just a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. So to please Krishna, it requires devotion, love and devotion. The Tulsi leaf specifically is used in the worship of the Lord because she is so dear to Krishna. We have in our Tulsi room on the 2nd floor, and if anybody hasn't visited there, we ask you to go there. We made it several years ago during Kartik, on the appearance day of Vrinda Devi. We inaugurated it, which is this past Wednesday. We made it into a sanctuary. We wanted it to be for devotees to go where they can chant japa, take shelter of Tulsi if they need to meditate or pray on a particular topic, that they can receive the blessings of Tulsi Maharani. So visit there if you can. Make sure receives the care best we can do given our situation. But in this, and it says, by the mercy of Tulsi Devi, even the impossible becomes possible. So I want us to meditate on that for a moment. It's really nice. But as we go through this class, we're going to understand Devi. Even the impossible becomes possible. And to get there, I want to touch on Srila Prabhupada. Specifically, I mean, it was fun during Tulsi. You're putting so much time into this plant. Better you water an eggplant because an eggplant will at least give you some fruits that you can cook sabji and eat it. But how are you going to offer that eggplant? You could say, I'm going to offer that eggplant with love and devotion. But will Krishna accept that eggplant without a Tulsi leaf? So let's get into this a little bit. Srila Prabhupada says, the most important thing about the spiritual world is that there is no envy among the devotees there. And we can see, even the flowers, they're not envious of each other. They're not saying, no, 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 I'm the best. I should be offered to Krishna. They're saying, Tulsi is the best. Right? And we don't see this quality in the material world. In fact, this element of envy is very strong. And this envy actually prevents us from having genuine, real relationships. Because there's this, sometimes it's very subtle and sometimes it's very grossly manifest. Envy that comes out. Srila Prabhupada tells a kind of a funny story about a high court judge. And he heard this from his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And it goes like this, that there were two friends. They were walking down the street and they were talking. And the one friend informed the other friend. He says, do you know that, which would be a third friend, that we went to school with, he became a high court judge. And then the other friend looked at him and says, no, I don't think that's true. And he says, no, it's true. Yes, I saw him. He was sitting on the bench. It's true. He's now a high court judge. And then the other friend, feeling defeated, he says, maybe, but I don't think he takes a salary. I don't think they pay him. So there's always this, desire to try to put down, minimize, even something that's an accomplishment. We're always trying to find a way, well, maybe it's not so special as the friend with the high court judge. Okay, so I admit, okay, he achieved something in life, he's a high court judge, but now he's casting some doubt. Well, they probably don't pay him. Prabhupada used this to explain that envious people will always manufacture some level of fault, no matter how good something is, because they cannot tolerate another person's success. This is very hard in our conditioned nature. In fact, fault is everywhere. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, just as, smoke covers fire, the womb covers the embryo, dust covers a mirror, every endeavor is covered by some level of fault. So oftentimes we don't have to look too far to find the fault. The question is, how far are we willing to look to actually find the good in somebody else? There's lots of stories regarding envy that Srila Prabhupada warns us of. One example is, that of a snake, the venom of a snake, right? Srila Prabhupada compared, envious people to venomous snakes. However, he said that a snake can be subdued with mantras and herbs. However, human beings that are envious are more dangerous because they can't really be pacified, really, in any way. And envious becomes even more dangerous, right? When you start to cast doubts upon other people, right? Because usually envy is not kept within oneself. It's then spread, to others. Srila Prabhupada, he recognized among his godbrothers that there was some envy towards him. Srila Prabhupada came to the West. He started the Krishna consciousness movement. Despite struggling extremely hard, beyond our comprehension, through the cold, through denial, through lack of money and funds, through having to deal with, hippies on drugs and rooming with them, living with them, trying to convince them, tolerating their ignorance and naiveness. Srila Prabhupada, somehow by the mercy of Krishna and his perseverance, was able to, emerge, spreading Krishna consciousness through, throughout the West. And when he returned, and his godbrother and his disciples returned to India, they could sense that Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers were actually envious of Srila Prabhupada. And they would cast doubts, saying things like, yes, he's giving you this, but really this is not the highest. You need to actually come and learn more from us. And Srila Prabhupada recognized this, and it made him feel very sad, despite Srila Prabhupada's attempts to include his godbrothers, asking them for help. He says, they wouldn't even send me a mridanga, despite many attempts in writing. So, envy is very serious in this world, and it's an impediment in the progress of our devotional service. once His Holiness Giriraj Swami asked Srila Prabhupada, he was recognizing, he was a personal servant of Prabhupada and had access and was able to communicate with Srila Prabhupada regularly. And he was feeling these feelings of envy he had toward other devotees. And he recognized that it was beginning to hurt his focus in Krishna consciousness. And he realized if he wasn't able to correct it, how is it that he would have been able, how can he advance? So he asked Srila Prabhupada, he said, what to do with envy? Srila Prabhupada replied, asking him, can you think of any reasons why you should not be envious? Interesting, Srila Prabhupada, he put it back on him. What do you kind of basically, you should be thinking about these things. And she said, yes, Prabhupada, I had reflected upon this. And then Srila Prabhupada said, to be envious of someone means that you do not like that person. That, one second, they're going to open the doors. Just wait. Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki, Jagannath Dev Subhadra Maharani ki, Shri Shri Radha Sharad Bihari ki. Srila Prabhupada said, to be envious of someone means that you do not like that person. That not liking should be directed against the demons that are causing so much trouble to the devotees and so much havoc in the world. That not liking should not be directed towards devotees. So that was one way Srila Prabhupada told us to deal with envy. That not liking should be directed towards, not toward devotees, not those that are trying to do good, not those that are trying to propagate Krishna consciousness, but should actually be directed toward those in this world that are actually trying to tear down, the moral fabric, the spiritual fabric, degrade the world, pollute people's minds, and give trouble to those that are trying to do good. And then, of course, he recommended that we have to chant the holy names of the Lord. We have to, because by chanting, it cleanses the heart of these contaminations of envy. By immersing ourselves in devotional service, thinking about Krishna, hearing about Krishna, reading about Krishna, coming together to serve Krishna. This will cleanse the impurities out of our lives. And being attentive that these feelings of envy are actually not good. And when they do appear, redirect them, stop them. So, Tulsi Devi, how does she make the impossible possible? Because at the stage of devotional service that we're in, we serve the deity in a very regulated way, especially here in the temple. We cook for the deity, we dress the deity, and the deity will help us develop attachment to the service of Krishna. However, we are not pure. We still have residual feelings of envy, jealousy, anger. These are manifestations of the false ego. Envy, we shouldn't really be surprised when we see it, because our place in this material world, the reason we're here in this material world, is due to our envious position, ultimately, of the greatest, Lord Krishna. Becoming envious of Krishna, this is where we find ourselves. So we prepare offerings to Krishna, but we're not in a pure state. So how can Krishna, who is pure, receive the service of something that is unpure. And that's where Srimati Tulsi Maharani comes in. By offering Krishna the Tulsi leaf, Krishna will accept it. She makes the impossible possible. And that is the value of serving, worshiping, cultivating Tulsi for the service of Krishna. She is not meant for our tea, as we'll see, that's become famous, holy basil tea you can get. She's meant for the service of the Lord. Now, Tulsi, I'm going to read a nice passage from a lecture from His Holiness Darshana Swami Maharaj, who has a very deep affection for Tulsi and Vrinda Devi. If you ever go to New Vrindavan, I recommend that you seek out Darshana Maharaj, who lives remotely on the New Vrindavan land in a very small cabin, very austere place. And he has the deity of Vrinda Devi, and he worships her and brings devotees to worship her. He writes, the goddess of Vrindavan, who is Srimati Radharani, lovingly appointed Vrinda as the presiding deity of Vraj, who awards blessings for our advancement in Krishna consciousness. And her kund, her lake, is near Nandagram. And this place offers the first meeting place of Radha and Krishna every day, with Vrinda Devi and Purnamasi, where they decide, they plan the different leelas that will be performed that day. What breezes will carry what fragrances from different forests? What flowers will blossom where? What parrots will pick up the flowers and deliver them? What outfits will be appropriate for the various pastimes throughout the day? Who the pujaris will be? Who will lead the kirtan? And who will dance? It is all decided at Vrindakund, the very first thing every morning. And Vrinda Devi is the orchestrator of every detail of the Vraja Leela, which is why she is worshipped by the 6 Goswamis, and why she was installed by Rupa Goswami, even before he found Sri Sri Radha Govinda. The 6 Goswamis worship Vrinda Devi because of her astute awareness of every detail of Vraja Leela. They appeal to her to help them go deep into the wonders of Vraja Leela in order to reveal to the world, this world that we're living in, to attract our hearts back to her world. So this is the role of Vrinda Devi in the eternal realm of Goloka Vrindavan. She appears here on earth in a manifestation as the tree or plant, Tulsi Devi. And of course, there's an interesting story, as there always is, behind all these pastimes. And her appearance coming down into earth, resulted from a curse. But in the spiritual world, it's the absolute plane. There is no duality. Actually, curses are actually benedictions and blessings. Conspiracies actually are very charming and have a certain level of intrigue and charisma to them. So you have to come down to into this material world for some reason. Who would want to leave the spiritual world to come here? So there has to be some curse that's involved in order to come. Now, we may not see this in Gura Lila, where the mood is permeated by this adarya, or a compassion, the mood of compassion, following the Lord's mood. But in this Raja Lila, you see when Krishna descended into this world to be able to display his unlimited pastimes. Also, he came with his associates and the residents of Vrindavan. And they appeared and manifested in so many ways. So our connection to Vrinda Devi in the service of Krishna is through her manifestation as Tulsi Devi. And we have the ability to worship her, sing her praises, water her, and cultivate her for our service in Lord Krishna, in Krishna, in our service to Lord Krishna, Shri Radha and Krishna. I wanted to recite the prayers real quick that we say in the morning, along with the English. And this will also reaffirm what we just heard about Vrinda Devi's role in Vrindavan, and what we as devotees ask and beg of her to please engage us in that service. If you can pull that up in the songbook, it's under the morning prayers, Tulsi Devi. It's very beautiful prayers. We start off by saying, Vrindayai Tulsi Deviai, Priyaye Kesavashicha, Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi, Satyavitai Namo Namaha. I offer my repeated obeisances unto Vrinda, Srimati Tulsi Devi, who is very dear to Lord Keshava. O goddess, you bestow devotional service to Lord Vishnu and possess the highest truth. Starting off with obeisances, then Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi, Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi. O Tulsi, beloved of Krishna, I bow down before you again and again. My desire is to obtain the service of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. Jetomara Sharadana Loy Taravancha Purna Hoy Kripa Kori Korotare Vrindavana Vasi. Whoever takes shelter of you, Vrinda, has his wishes fulfilled. Bestowing your mercy upon him, you will make him a resident of Vrindavan. Again, she orchestrates all the leelas, all the activities that goes on in the holy land of Raj. Moraye Abilas, Vilas Kunje Diovas, Nayane Haribo Sada, Yugala Rupa Rasi. My desire is that you will also grant me residence in the pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Nivedanavdara Shakiranugata Koro Seva Adi Koro Die Koro Nijadasi. I beg you to please make me a follower of the cowherd damsels of Raj, the gopis. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own dasi. Make me your maidservant. So we're actually praying to Tulsi Devi, please make me your maidservant. Make me a servant of yours, because you are the topmost servant of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. Dina Krishna dase koi, eye no mora hoy, Sri Radha Govinda preme, sadaye nabasi. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna prays, may I always swim in the love of Sri Radha and Krishna. Yani kani chapapani, brahmahatyadakani cha, tani tani pranashanti pradakshina pade pade. Let me sing this part while we circumambulate Tulsi Devi. And the meaning is by circumambulation of Sri Tulsi Devi, Srimati Tulsi Devi, all the sins that one may have committed are destroyed at every step, even the sin of killing a Brahmana. Hare Krishna. Okay. We certainly don't want to do that. We don't want to test that one out. But that is the potency of true spiritual service, undivided devotion to the pure devotee of the Lord. In summary, it is by the mercy of Brinda Devi appearing here as Tulsi Devi, which allows us to be able to engage in the service of Lord Krishna, to take our impurities and whatever offering we make to Sri Sri Radha and Krishna through the guidance of the spiritual master. It is by the presence of Tulsi Devi by which Krishna then accepts it. Takes the impure and makes it acceptable to Lord Krishna. This is why we spend so much time and effort cultivating Srimati Tulsi here. So if you have Tulsi in your house, take good care of her. Get her the proper light, water her properly, learn about her. She's very delicate to care for. But more than anything, chant before her, sing before her, read before her, and pray to her these prayers, asking to please engage me in the service of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. Allow me to enter into the pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. And then lastly, as this verse indicated, that all the different plants in the spiritual world that have so much beautiful fragrance that we hear about, the lilies, the parijata flowers, other ones that I'm not so familiar with. But the parijata flower is so famous in Krishna Lila. How the Pandavas, Bhima, ran up the hillside just to bring down the parijata plant for Draupadi. You can smell the fragrance. He's intoxicated. Even the parijata flower says, "Oh, you Tulsi Devi, you are supreme." And that should remind us that in the spiritual world there is no envy. And we should follow in the footsteps of the inhabitants of the spiritual world. When we see the success of someone else, we should become happy. We shouldn't think, why has this happened to me? How can I diminish this other person and their reputation so that that recognition or that fame can come my way? When we actually feel pleasure for the success of another devotee, we know that we've made spiritual advancement. And even if there is some fault, we see ourselves as the servant and say, how do I help carry what is lacking instead of embellishing the fault that exists? Srila Prabhupada once said, he says, this is third class. This is for the third class person, meaning the Kanishta Adhikari, third class devotional service. those that are finding fault. So as we advance in Krishna consciousness by serving Tulsi Devi, this can be our remembrance, can elevate us to the point where we become supportive of other devotees, inspired by their spiritual advancement, glorifying them, happy to celebrate their spiritual achievements and the blessings that Krishna awards them. Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comments, reflections, or reflections, comments, or questions? Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Puji, for a wonderful class.
Adava Shrestha Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I wanted to just ask Puji, like how to also see good in the sense of people who have different philosophy, like for example, Mayavadis. So what our mood should be when we are seeing some Mayavadi sannyasi or somebody quoting those things in front of people? What should be our, how to take that positively so that we should not do offense to even them?
Yeah. So you don't want to make offenses to any living beings. The question was, what about, when you see Mayavadis, how do you not become upset about them? So this Srila Prabhupada, in talking to Giriraj Swami, he says, if we still have these feelings, at least don't direct them toward devotees. Do this not liking, he says, this not liking. Envy means you don't like somebody and you don't want to dislike devotees. So if you do have some not liking feeling, at least direct it towards somebody who's doing bad in this world. That's a start. But ultimately, when it comes to the point where we have compassion for those that are suffering, suffering due to ignorance. The Madhyamadikari, we were just studying this on Thursday, has, he's able to see 4 divisions of categories. He has affection for the Supreme Lord. Those that are performing devotional service, he has friendships, and depending on their status and relationship to them, they either serve them, befriend them, or encourage. To the senior, those that are peers, or the junior. And then there's those that are innocent, and to the innocent, they encourage and try to teach. And then to the envious or the atheists, they avoid and they just kind of pray from a distance. So that's kind of the general rule, we can follow. Sure. Anything else? Sure. Anything online?
Mother Golokananda Mataji had her hand up.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. She was just here.
Yeah, I have to leave. Sorry. Very nice class about Tulsi Devi, and about we talk also in the beginning about not appreciating other devotees and finding fault, and sometimes we have to be very careful. Sometimes unknowingly we try to find fault with other people, and other people's service. Other people's service, and the people get hurt, and when people get hurt, then they start like talking about each other, then they have the tendency to criticize. So what do you do in that case? In case sometimes people get hurt because they just get offended, and there's
Yeah.
negative thought about the person who's correcting it. I know there's a big ego there
Yeah.
that come in between.
Yeah.
And I think in the course of our service, we have to be very careful, how we treat others, how we don't hurt other people's feeling.
That's good advice. You know, we have to be very conscious and careful in our dealings so that, you know, people don't get hurt by what our words that we say, the actions that we do. And we're not perfect. So if we do, you know, make some mistakes, we should be strong enough, humble enough to be able to say, I'm sorry, I said this and I felt that was incorrect and I think it may have hurt you or offended you. I really didn't mean it. This is what I really meant, but I realized I was wrong. Now, every pancake has two sides, right? You know, so there's the things that we can do, and there's certain things that are out of our control. Some people, no matter what, are going to just take everything wrong, right? You give them a compliment, and they'll somehow twist it and take it some wrong. Oh, I really like that quarter you're having. You have one today. Oh, that means you don't like my other quarters because you didn't say that to me. No matter, so Prabhupada actually says this when in talking about this idea of envy. He says, let me find it here. He says, that I can't, I'm not sure where it went. But basically the idea was that, Srila Prabhupada was saying is, people that have this deep-rooted feelings of hurt, envy inside of them, unless it becomes extracted, they'll always begin to manufacture some reason to be upset or envious over somebody else. And we have to pray. We have to, sometimes it requires some type of, psychological download to get rid of all the baggage that we've been carrying in our false ego for such a long time. Sometimes we've been hurt as children and we've been carrying that through. And then that just one hurt builds on another hurt. And that really all this is just building our false sense of self. When we hear about, for instance, the pastimes of Tulsi Devi, Krishna Lila, our spiritual self is actually covered over. And this is what is actually experiencing things, not the true self. So we have to hear spiritual wisdom, and then we have to apply it. We have to actually apply the principles. And we'll actually find that they actually work. That we can get rid of envy, we can get rid of lust, we can get rid of anger, we can get rid of greed. Our false ego can begin to erode away by the practice of devotional service and the blessings of the devotees. So there are things that we can do, and we should certainly do it. And there's certain things, no matter what we do, no matter how hard we try, it's on the other person that the effort has to be there on their part. Does that make sense, Mother Golokananda Priya? Okay. Anything else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mother
I
Sima.
just want to know which Tulsi Aarti do we do during the Mangal Aarti in the morning? How does it start? I don't.
Yeah, so we do it right after the Mangal Aarti. It begins here at the temple right around 5:30. So as soon as the deity curtains close, then Tulsi Devi comes off the altar. We have her on the altar next to Shri Gaur Nitai. And then she comes off the altar. She's not worshipped in front of Krishna. because she's
Okay.
a devotee of Krishna. She's worshiping Krishna. So she doesn't like to be worshipped in front of Krishna. So after the curtains close,
Okay.
then we worship Tulsi Devi.
And which song do you, how the first two lines, because I have the book, I don't know which song you sing.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah. So it's the one that I recited there. It starts off by Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Radha Krishna Deva Pavo Eya Vilasi Chetumara Sararanaloy Tadavancha Purna Hoy Kripa Kori Korotare Vrindavana Vasi. If you need help finding it,
Yeah, I found it in my
you
book.
found it. Okay, perfect.
Vaishnav song. Thank you very much. It
Yeah.
was really nice class, whole class about Tulsi and also about the flowers there. I could imagine those flowers as living beings and appreciating Tulsi Maharani and praising Tulsi Maharani. It was really nice. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
No,
Rajaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hare Hare.